And now moving on to the next session, ladies and gentlemen. Today's Omni-Channel retail universe is all about creating a consistent consumer experience, from in-store pickup of products ordered online to one-click purchases delivered to your doorstep. The consumer demands ease and convenience. The consumer is shopping in-store, online, and from any number of devices, and retailers want to excel in fulfilling the entire cycle of order placement to delivery in a seamless manner. What can all the players in the retail ecosystem, including retailers, vendors, and logistics service providers, retailers, suppliers, and logistics firms, do to get a jump on omni-channel fulfillment? Here, class, leading strategies and ideas in this invigorating best practices sharing session powered by Delivery. Meeting consumer expectation, the omni-channel retail mandate, the new fulfillment game in logistics to excel in an omni-channel environment. We would like to invite Mr. Mohit Tandon, co-founder and CSO, Delivery, to present.
Hi everyone, I'm Mohit. I'm one of the co-founders of Delivery. It's e-commerce enablement and supply chain company. We are a 4-year-old company. What I want to do is that just set the stage right now for our panel discussion, and walk you through our experience in the last 4 years on what we have seen as the biggest challenges in infrastructure and technology on the omni-channel side. So we'll give you a ringside view of e-commerce. Over the last 4 years, we have grown 4x almost every year, and have been able to scale up the logistics and as well as the technology part of the supply chain, and has been focusing on it. Going forward, we see e-commerce to grow 17x in the next 5 years and clearly become one of the largest channels in retail in India. We are seeing basically people from not just metros and tier 1 cities, tier 2, tier 3, and even rural parts of the country to engage in online transactions across, and people from across all demographies buying every type of product. When the e-commerce started with just books and electronics 4 years back, but now you can actually every restaurant, every grocer, every hyperlocal retailer, every brand, and even the e-commerce company, everybody wants to go online and create a niche for themselves within the space of e-commerce. So it's not just about the online retail guys, but basically pretty much everybody and anybody will be a part of the ecosystem, and they will need a specific, a customized supply chain and technology solution for them to grow. And when we talk about offline brands and retailers on the omni-channel side, it really means that you have to have an omnipresence before creating omni-channels, where you are present on a customer's mobile phone, on his desktop, on a kiosk in a mall, or whether it's a metro station as well as the stores. So how do you create an omnipresence first? That's the first question, where you can directly engage with the customer. What omni-channel, what the online e-commerce system has done is that it has enabled brands to directly interact with its customers, right? Which eventually, as discussed in the last panel discussion also, was that leads to superior channel loyalty and more spend by the customers on the with the brand, right? And it's not just about the B2C part of omni-channel, but it's also about B2B. How do you enable your retailers, your distributors to actually also transact online with you? How can you run flash sales to them? How do you enable better inventory management through your retail distribution channel also? Sorry. We've seen this, and we've studied market across the globe in West and in Southeast Asia, and multiple now the retailers of all type of categories across FMCG, consumer goods, large white goods, and even groceries basically are leveraging online and omni-channel strategies in different ways. An FMCG player basically leveraged the social media and chat services to do sampling, and got great data out of it, which they were not able to do to extract earlier. Um, an apparel brand created an omni-channel fulfillment center where basically they used a common inventory to service all type of their orders, whether it's offline, online, etc. So unlike multi-channel, they really actually created an omni-channel experience for its customers. Uh, then there's a FMCG brand which enrolled retailers using a smartphone to create a loyalty app. Uh, there are people who have done basically used online channel very effectively to create a differentiated after sales experience for their customers. So really for brands, basically, the opportunity is unlimited and they can play across the entire value chain for e-commerce. I'll just lay down, what are the few challenges that retailers face when they create an omni-channel platform. The first one is that when you go online from just an offline business, where do you list your products? How do you sell? Where do you sell? Whether it's a marketplace, your own website, social media, offline, kiosk, what do you do? Then the second problem that comes in is that as you go online, as a brand or a retailer goes online directly, what happens to the distributor and the channel conflict? And how do you intend to resolve that channel conflict? The third one is basically then, a unified or a global inventory view, where how do you use the same inventory which is lying in the store or a warehouse to fulfill your orders where when a customer comes to your store, or whether he orders online or through a kiosk. So really, basically, customer can order from anywhere, but the same SKU or a piece which is lying in a store should be able to. You need to have the capability to fulfill that order directly to the customer. How do you create the traditional logistics and transportation for offline is very different. For example, a warehouse for a traditional offline retailer will have a box in, box out kind of capabilities. But when you create an omni-channel fulfillment center, how do you make sure that the same warehouse is able to actually service a box in, box out, as well as a B2C order where they have to pick an item, specific item, and ship it to a consumer directly. The cost, the economics, the layout, the automation required for that kind of a fulfillment center is completely different from what we have currently in India. Then on the transportation side, how do you create innovative structures where you can create on-demand delivery solutions for the customers? How do you enable stores to ship directly to the customer? How do you enable store to ship from one store to the other? And then the last part is after sales, is that post-sales, how do you engage with the customers? How do you manage returns? How do you manage refurbishment and liquidation of the inventory to create the entire omni-channel supply chain for the customer? At the end of the day, the customer wants to, on a click, basically buy anywhere and return it anywhere. And omni-channel is really about enabling that through technology and logistics infrastructure. The last thing is that there is no unique model or a formula to do omni-channel. Every organization, every vertical will have its own set of structure and will end up creating its own omni-channel fulfillment experience for its customer. So there is no one formula that you can have. And the best way to do it is that just go try. So just do pilots, engage with customers, and see what the feedback is. You will fail in some cases, but you'll eventually, hopefully, if you keep trying hard, will succeed. So with that, basically, I would like to open it to the panel. And
thank you, Mr. Mohit Tandon. And Mr. Mohit Tandon is also the moderator for this panel. And I would like to invite Mr. Rachit Mathur, Partner and Director, BCG India, who's the co-moderator for this discussion. Would like to invite Mr. Bino George, Head of Business Consultant for Indian Subcontinent. Mradul Khandelwal, Vice President, Business Development. Preeta Shuktankar, CEO and founder, thelabelcorp.com. Mr. Ranjit Satyanath, CIO, Chroma. Mr. Rishi Vasudev, VP Fashion, Flipkart.com. Thank you so much.
Clearly, we are the fortunate panel to get the 5 o'clock slot, so that's fairly evident. But welcome to my co-panelists. And the conversation that we're going to have today is about fulfillment, and it's a fairly esteemed panel with a lot of expertise that we can talk about. The way we'll very quickly run this is about half an hour. Let's just amongst us discuss uh, fulfillment and the various facets of fulfillment. Uh, and just to kick it off, I read this very interesting statistic which said that 2/3 of consumers go online or buy online because of convenience. And its convenience is where bridging to home is one of the key aspects of convenience. In the same way, 2/3 of consumers actually are unhappy with the online channel because of delivery. And if you actually look at it, it does seem to be two sides of a coin. So using that, I just wanted to let me just set up the discussion and ask a couple of questions. And Rishi, let me go first with you. I think we talk about fulfillment, but how integral do you think fulfillment is to omni-channel and e-commerce? And how would one dimensionalize the advantages and disadvantages of fulfillment?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So I would take it in two parts. I think the biggest possibilities that online opens up is, or the best service that you can give somebody is that widest selection at the fastest speed, right? So as online has grown rapidly, selection has really grown rapidly. A lot of people suddenly realize they have access to consumers all across the country. And therefore, the consumers really loved the fact that now they had millions of styles, all the brands, good prices, all the sizes, which were really the pain of some of the other buying channels. But with the selection also came the complexity that you did not know what you were ordering was lying in your city or a neighborhood close to you or the farthest point. And therefore, logistics is now becoming a very, very important integral part, because if you are not able to deliver that fast enough, then the statistics that you mentioned actually happens, that you see a lot of selection, but you realize that most items that you like actually comes after 9 days, 10 days, or even more. So therefore, there are two parts of the problem. One is that how do you technologically solve the whole issue of giving visibility to items which are closer to consumers, and on the reverse side, how can you get more and more people who have actually committed stocks closer to the consumer, really push that to them rather than shipping something centrally or nationally from one point. Now, combination or both actually gives the answer to how to give consumers a wide selection at faster speed. Yes, sure.
Yeah. Just feel free to
Yeah, I
step in.
just wanted to add something. I represent Infor. We have solutions that primarily handle the fulfillment piece of it. So fulfillment is seen as a very important part. You could have exposure online or in store, and once a customer makes a choice, how do you fulfill it is the key part. So to your question, Rajat, I think fulfillment is important, and we do have customers in India who are using our solutions, handling just the fulfillment piece of it. So there are advantages, and there are serious loss of business if you don't fulfill in the right time.
As Rishi said, that when with omni-commerce, what we see is that you don't know from where your customer would be ordering. Would he be ordering from this city or the another one or the farthest corner? Then comes the picture. So at Loginext, what we are a end-to-end solution supply chain company, and we provide the big data and analytics. And what we provide is the visibility. That's where we require that, because you would always know the customer can order from anywhere, but from where you would deliver. The where becomes the question which has to be answered in terms of fulfillment to ensure that you could have happy customers, which everybody is looking for.
Peter, let me move to a quick question here. And this is more for all the larger fraternity of entrepreneurs who are looking at this space. But specifically on fulfillment, somebody who's young and new and investigating the market, how did you think about fulfillment? Right from thinking about the customer promise on fulfillment to how would you partner, or would you make your own fulfillment system, and how do you monitor it so that you are continuously having a feedback loop to correct what's going on?
So hi, I don't know if you guys know what the Label Corp does, so let me start by saying that. We have 3 labels, the home label by Suzanne Roshan, the trunk label by Bapasha Basu, and the closet label by Malaika. So we sell fashion, accessories, and home across these categories. So for us, exactly opposite of what Rishi said, curated stuff that does not get delivered really fast. So that's possibly the worst promise, but we make products that people desire and not necessarily need. So we're trying to fulfill a very different sort of space, which ends up becoming something like a customer wants a swimsuit that she sees, and it is going to take 6 to 8 days, and that is our promise. And for us, we'd rather deliver the right merchandise in the time committed. But we obviously can't compete with people who can do it in 6 hours, and that is not necessarily the promise that we also mean to deliver. Having said that, as an entrepreneur who started this with absolutely no background in retail, or forget logistics and the extra layers that we don't really understand, I think it was much harder, because you literally Google who does a great job and meet all of them, and they give you terms that are obviously not the same terms that they would give somebody with a way larger piece of the pie. So it was something that we sort of learned through, and I think that now we have great partners. We want to talk to delivery, obviously, but we work with the usual guys. But you know that before you go into the last mile logistics, we actually, and I don't know how many people are entrepreneurs here, but we really had issues of even setting up warehouses, space, inventory planning, management, racking. I mean, we've been through a place where we literally bought used racks and then planned things. We were not barcoded till 6 months back. So we are at another space. So I'm happy to answer questions from anybody who started off in that manner.
Rajit, any views from you on this one? Because, you know, you are dealing with a very wide range of merchandise, though still within the CDIT space. But, you know, expensive televisions to fairly, you know, to relatively cheaper, smaller to really big nature of merchandise. And, you know, along with that, fairly scaled. So how have you thought about fulfillment, right from, you know, the make versus buy, as well as, you know, how do you actually partner an ecosystem?
So Chroma is a 9-year-old brand. We started our online journeys about 3 years ago. We started off as a, it was more of a multi-channel enterprise at that time. And since the last 1 year, we've tried to combine the inventory across all channels and give an omni-channel experience to our customers. And some of these efforts have borne fruit. So today, about 30% of our online sales comes through omni-channel initiatives. And when I say omni-channel initiatives, I mean buy online, pick up at store, direct store delivery. We today ship to about 2,000 pin codes across the 20 cities that we are present in through our own people. For the balance, we actually use 3PLs. From an IT perspective, you know, most retailers, they've actually designed their systems with the store in mind. So what I really mean is that the replenishment cycles runs once a day. The inventories from all the stores get synced once a day. But with omni-channel coming, you want to leverage your inventory across all channels. Therefore, you have to look at inventory at a more real-time basis. You also have to do things like direct store deliveries, cross docks, so on and so forth. You've got to invest in a lot of new age technologies like transport planning systems, vehicle tracking systems. So the investments are a lot more because the customer expectations have also increased manifold.
You know, this is probably the most limp of all the questions, but let me, given the nature of the variety of the panel that we have, what do we see as the primary challenges, as we look at fulfillment? And feel free to talk about your experiences specifically, given the human resource challenge, the infrastructure challenge, as well as technology or the technology-centric challenges. In the same way, I think it would be good to hear about challenges around mindset. The conventional retailer versus what I would say a typical omnichannel retailer. Modi, you want to start first?
Yeah. I think the challenges on the fulfillment side, one, what people talk about is always on the infrastructure side and the manpower side. I think that those are challenges, that have been solved to some extent, and these are challenges which can be overcome as the industry grows and matures over a period of time. That's not the biggest challenge. I think I'll just go back to your previous question also and refer to that, is that the first thing we need to basically, clarify and educate the customers also is that it's more about accuracy than speed. You will not get, the customer should understand that they will not get everything in 1 day or 2 days, right? There has to be differentiation in the services that you offer, and the customer should be willing to pay. If you want something in 6 hours, yes, it can be delivered, but it will cost you more. But other than that, if you are willing to wait, then it is going to take you some time to actually get things delivered. See, on the human resource side, right, it's a new industry, and in 4 years it has grown from, basically 5 years it has grown from nothing to basically $8-10 billion industry right now. So there are people basically who are now coming into this field where they are understanding. So for example, I'll take the example of logistics, right? When we started delivery, basically nobody said that if you are an engineer and if you are educated, why would you want to go and run a courier company, right? That was something which was seen as a taboo, that who runs a courier company. But now we are able to attract the best talent in the industry on the tech side, on data services side, on logistics, to run operations. People from IITs, IIMs also are willing to now come and run logistics operations, go to a warehouse, get their hands dirty and do things. 4 years ago, this was unthinkable, right? So it's not that I think human resource and infrastructure is something that is, evolving and is keeping pace with the growing nature of e-commerce. But it's now more around, setting up the customer expectations also in the right manner, is that, this is a service which costs something, and, finally at the end of the day, you are offering him a convenience. For that, he needs to be willing to pay. If he's not willing to pay for it, then basically, over a longer period of time, that service does not hold ground on the basic business fundamentals. That if he's not willing to pay for it, then he doesn't value that service probably.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one from the infrastructure side, IT infrastructure. One of the challenges that Omni-Channel fulfillment is seeing is that there are multiple systems you have to touch and handoffs of the systems and integration. So you need to look at solutions that are loosely coupled. When I say that, things that are not very hard-coded, things that are not rigid, which can actually take data from one and spit out data to the other very easily. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Looking at an order management system, a fulfillment system, a transportation planning system, as Ranjit just mentioned, it becomes really difficult to, if you are looking at systems which are fairly rigid. That is one challenge that we have experienced with our implementations in India.
Speaking from an IT perspective, I think the IT problems are relatively easier to solve. There are other bigger challenges. One is the taxation. Enough has been said about Indian taxation, and hopefully GST will come and do something about it. The second part is the cost of logistics. I can give you an example. Last time during Dussehra, we had a customer booked an order for a refrigerator, and we had just one piece, and that was in our Hyderabad DC, and he wanted it shipped to Bombay. Now, we couldn't do it because the cost of shipping was so huge that we just had to let go of that order. So that's the second part. The cost of logistics needs to come down. And some of my colleagues also touched upon the human factor about it. Most of the pickers, the people that we employ at our DCs, their education levels are pretty low. So training them, getting them up to speed uh, about the products is an extremely tall challenge. Uh, and even that kind of resources are, very, very sparse in supply. Uh, for example, in our B1D DC, we've got a bunch of these speakers trained, and within a few weeks, a large online retailer whose name shall not be taken comes and hires them at a 30 to 40% salary increase. So these are some of the challenges that we are, trying to cope up with.
So I'll go more grassroots than that. So I think one thing that would be amazing for new entrepreneurs is if there was sort of a full service agency, and I know Vinculum has been talking to this with us earlier, but even somebody who probably solves all the fulfillment issues, and I don't only mean the logistics thereon, but also helping with, say, how do you barcode, what do you separate out, how do you do your SKU codes, down to then which, for someone like us, and we literally carpet bombed right from the beginning, where we sold everything from glasses to footwear, right? Which then just, was not something that we thought through clearly right up in the beginning. How do we deal with that challenge of size, package, sending out, how much it's going to cost us, all of that. That's one. Secondly, I feel even pre-scale and at startup stage, and in our case when we, also bootstrapped, how do you deal with one, human resource, two, really falling so low down in a food chain that 2 years back during Diwali, we actually could fulfill the kind of orders we were getting, but, a Blue Dart or a DHL would put us down the food chain, which meant that our orders would take 8 days, which is what happened the last time, whereas everybody else's orders were being pushed up. So these are, I feel, really basic sort of challenges for a new brand like ours. And if there was a way of maybe putting together 10 or 12 brands that are smaller together, I'm just, throwing something out there, so that we could have some sort of a better bargain of sorts. And I don't mean in terms of just money, but really, a better chance at making this work, which I guess now is easier for us. Last year we didn't have that problem, but I'm saying right up front.
See, it's interesting because, having worked on a supply chain assignment for one of the new gen e-com entrants, and as a consultant, I'm very used to working with just very hard-coded numbers. The biggest challenge working in this particular space is you don't know rate of sale, because it varies so much by month, and it varies at the rate at which it is growing, where there's a tripling effect or a 20% month-on-month effect happening. Half the time, you don't know how to capacity or size. And, I think that is one really, really, critical thing that I learned as I worked in this industry. And with somebody, where your customers are facing this sort of a volatility, and let me not say volatility, but, such steady growth. And I don't think anybody can really, table or stay that, where I will be 6 months from now. Somebody who runs a physical capacity-oriented business like yours, how do you plan?
I think that's the biggest challenge as you speak. Basically, we are facing next Diwali in the next 1.5 months, and it's really unclear because the market is evolving over a period so fast that previous Diwali to this Diwali, you don't know where the demand is going to come from. Last Diwali, for example, I think 30% of the consumers were transacting on mobile. This year, I think it's the other way around. So you don't know where the new customers have come in from, right? And what the demand is going to look like. See, that's why I was saying is that this is something that is going to evolve over a period of time as retailers start collecting more and more data. And I think the solution lies in basically even at our end also we are running a data services team which actually just this analytics on where is all the demand coming from, where is all the supply coming from, what are the various connections, capacities that we have built across these. So better planning and planning, the solution is not going to come in the next 2 months or so, but it's something where you learn and evolve every day. And over a period of time, so the Diwali 2 years ago was a disaster. Last year it was still manageable. I think this year it will be better.
So are you hiring more people for Diwali? I'm just
yes,
checking.
of course we do. So that's why basically, we plan in advance in terms of, what is the worst that can happen. And at the end of the day, what happens is that even during Diwali, so if you look at, how this is a problem which is not just in India, this is a problem everywhere in the world where you have Black Friday in US, right? You need to have flexible teams basically who will go and basically switch over to that role also. So for example, FedEx or UPS, the entire corporate staff actually during Christmas time goes and delivers. So they have the additional capacity coming from corporate staff. Even from our side also, we have the entire team basically, which is the corporate staff, whether it's engineers, tech guys, BD, customer service. They will be on the field, including myself, delivering shipments. But that's how you can actually build a dynamic, sort of capacity. Otherwise, it won't make economic sense over a period of time to actually build a capacity for 1 month, and then you cannot lay off people just like that.
So given that Mohit is going to be delivering products, I'm sure that will be very, very costly. Brings me to the subject of cost. And Rishi, you would want to, hear from you. Delivery costs in India can be, tricky animal. While everybody sees a string of levers that, the cost structures can be brought down, but, two questions here. A, what sort of ticket sizes do you need to make delivery make sense? And the second question, hence being, how do you see, delivery costs actually playing out over the next 2, 3, 4 years with scale, with industry evolution, and with efficiencies coming in across? How do you see that happening?
So I'll address it from the perspective of a large retailer or large manufacturer brand, and also from small guys. What happens is that, so typically you have different shipment rates, whether it's national, zonal, or local, local being within 100 kilometers, zonal being within 500, and national being more. So therefore there is a large drop, say from 80 rupees national to maybe 20 rupees local. And if you are selling an item at 600 to 700 rupees, the cost structure really starts to make a lot of difference. Now, one bit that a lot of people put on marketplace is that they charge consumers for it, and that leads to lesser conversion. So if you were to sell an item at 700 and put a shipping charge of 50, you would see your conversion drop. That means that you are actually losing consumers by putting that item. However, if you were actually having that item closer to the consumer, you would not have to charge him shipping because you would be incurring a cost of 20 rupees and therefore generating more order. However, on the flip side, the more points of inventory that you put, you are increasing the risk of going wrong, right? So we are trying to solve this problem two ways. One is that making the whole the platform so it is geo-based. So that means you actually get to see things which are closer to you, mainly for categories which are long tail, and for branded categories, it has got less geo signal, so you can see national selection. Thereby, so even in the offline world, if you wanted to buy, say, a pair of a salwar kameez at 500 to 700 rupees, you would not want to go all around the city. You would go to the local market, and that choice is good enough. So the same thing is being done online. So thereby, 500, 600 rupee items should not crisscross the whole country. And if you want to sell only locally and keep the prices to 20 rupees shipping, then somebody else will sell in that market, and thereby net shipping cost will come down. That's for small sellers. For larger sellers, what's also happening is that people are building their supply chains differently for online and offline, right? While we say omni-channel, but principally they have a set pattern for offline, and online they're trying to build it separately. When people start to realize that they have capacity, so in Diwali, if there is a peak during the evenings in the store, but daytime guys are free and they could do delivery, or store has inventory which could be shipped or picked up, you cut down requirements of warehouse, you start to rationalize. And when you start to rationalize the various assets you have built up, you actually get better, your assets sweat better, the costs come down, and then you are able to get better sell-throughs. So I think a lot of the larger brands need to really look at how do they redesign the whole thing with the new reality, that how can their, say, DC in, say, a delivery DC in East becomes their hub for all channels, rather than delivery being online and offline going through the traditional distributor. So you are adding efficiency to the system. For smaller guys, it's really important if their ASPs are small, really focus local and try to really win on service. And if you are an exclusive brand, like what Preeta is doing, then people will wait for you, and that has another model side to it. So you won't go to a high-end restaurant and want things to be delivered in 5 minutes. So there is a different set of segment for that. So each one has to really solve for based on what is the cost of your goods, what is the shipping charge you can afford, and therefore what market you address and how. I think that in short is the complexity of delivery costs.
On the cost front, to how the delivery cost will come down, there are a few simple things which we talk about, and which we are not able to do right now is the capacity planning, because as you rightly said, we can't predict, right? How much would it be in this Diwali? How many orders would you be getting? And resource planning is skewed because, as she rightly said, there are large companies, and I have been meeting a lot of customers. We have a lot of hyper-local customers, and what we face is that the small startups who are bootstraps and all, they say that we had 5 delivery boys yesterday. Today there is only 1, because there is somebody came and hired all 4 of them by paying 20-25% high, and they don't know how to deliver stuff now, right? So all these problems which we talk about, so it's like basically we don't have the data right now. We don't have the data which could predict how would it be going forward. We don't have enough data at this point of time. If we include all the fulfillment which is happening by different companies, e-commerce companies, and there are few large players who are there. Their range is around $150,000 to 2 lakh shipments every day for the largest players in India, and then smaller ones in the range of 50 to 100,000, and the less, and there are. We probably, and not only for the delivery, we probably need to create an ecosystem where these data could be pooled for the predictive analysis. And that's where, as I was mentioning about our company, what we do is that, and as he said, the location, we believe the location is the key. That's what, and we are the big data company, what we do, and we don't have enough data at this point of time, but I have been collecting a lot of data to crunch the data and come up with those analysis which can tell that, okay, after 6 months or after a month, that's how your planning has to be. That's how you have to plan your resources, or probably that's how your capacity planning needs to be done, which would in turn ensure that your delivery cost comes down going forward.
I think, moving on to everybody's favorite subject, technology, and without being excessively nerdy about it, but I think the couple of questions that I had was and we've touched upon it, but a more specific response around saying a retailer works on something called point of sale or POS. The system choice is made on what's your POS. Point of sale and the way the point of sale works is and how it integrates backwards is very, very brick and mortar in its inherent thought, spirit, and design. How are you guys thinking and seeing the choice of making the current POS go wider and integrate the pure form of omnichannel? To how are those technology choices being made? Some light on that from you, Ranjit, would be very helpful.
No, so I agree with you. The way the POS has been designed, I don't think it has any innovation has happened on POS for the last 20-30 years. And I think with Omni-Channel and the kind of challenges, the kind of expectations that customers have, the POS needs to be reimagined and redesigned. Probably make it smaller, probably make it do more than what it is currently doing. Currently, it's just a glorified calculator, right? So you have to make it mobile. We are doing a project around the endless aisle, where it's not on the POS, it's on a different machine, but I would at some point in time like to integrate it with the POS, where when the customer walks into the store and he or she cannot find what they are looking for, we can actually show them variations of products on the POS and have them make the purchase there and deliver it at a later date. So also use the POS for giving customers more information. So this is one project that is currently in our pipeline. We are currently using the POS for streaming a lot of information and metadata to the customer so that they can make more informed choices.
Did you want to have a point of view on that?
Yeah, I would just shift from the pause to a point where, I want to share something, what Mohit said about pilots. And one of our large customers using our solution for supply chain is actually doing a complete pilot of in-store picking. So they are going to take these orders on the online portals that they have. They're going to source it based on zip code and other criteria based on the category to the closest store to do in-store picking. And as Rishi mentioned, maybe it's at the non-peak hours, make it ready for delivery. Delivery could be at the customer's doorstep, or the customer could choose to pick it up from any store that they want to. So these kind of projects are what they're coming to. So this is another part of where integration of the omni-channel, the real omni-channel feel is going to come in as we go. It's surely evolving. I think it's a cliche now, but it's surely evolving, and there are many ways it will evolve in the different categories.
And just to continue on that, one big challenge, and I wouldn't say challenge, but I think a way of life and a core customer proposition right now is around returns. So reverse logistics is, whether we like it or not, is playing a role, is playing a stronger role. Where and how are we actually seeing reverse logistics getting more efficient? Because half the time what you've got back, you don't even know what it is and where it's going to lie and how you'll realize its remnant value. And secondly, do you see reverse logistics becoming a separate, specific, specialist place by itself, and somebody who can manage that?
Yeah, I think reverse logistics, the way simply put, is it's like a meteor hitting you from outer space. You just don't know what's coming back. You don't know the style, color, if it's an apparel, and you have to then take it in, and it pretty much, because time is precious, it pretty much gets sidelined and stays there. Like we discussed, it doesn't get inventorized, re-inventorized, and go back into the system. That's going to be a challenge, but again, if you look at it, it's more of a people, process, and technology challenge. So we'll have to take all three of them into consideration to solve that problem. I agree with you. As of now, when I look into the outer space of retailing, I agree with you that this is something that may become a specialized area, and I won't be surprised if there are some sub-vendors who would really do this as a service for some of these retailing companies.
So in fact, just to touch on that point, is that we also basically, I think reverse logistics is something which is very critical that we see also going forward, and this is a problem with all the retailers. And it's a completely different supply chain. What traditionally people have been doing is that impose that on the forward supply chain, the same, and use the same manpower, same processes, same infrastructure, and the technology to do that. But that doesn't happen. So in fact, we basically offer now to our customers an entire end-to-end after-sales service solution, which is a different team and a vertical altogether, which manages right from returns to getting it to a center, doing a QC, sending it back to the vendors, whatever is irreusable, refinishing, liquidation, etc. Everything. So that's an entire basically vertical on its own, which is now basically started evolving with players like us and the ecosystem basically around it being created. So I think that's a problem, but that's not something which is not solvable.
As long as they're ready to pay for it.
So specific to reverse logistics, I think one point that I would like to make is, especially in our category, which is CDIT and electronics, the brands have not their terms and conditions have not really evolved. So there is a terminology in our category of retail called dead on arrival. So when you get a product, and when you open it and you find that it's not working, you have around 7 days, depending upon the brand that you've purchased, in which you can return it and get a replacement. Now, brands have not evolved to a online way of thinking. So and that 7 days is from the date of invoice. So it takes about 4 or 5 days for the product to reach the customer from the date of invoice. So when you buy it online, you really have only about 2 days in which to return it, right? And that's one great reason why you should buy things in the store and not online.
So I think returns is an opportunity also to increase sales. So if you look at mobile phone growth, I think an important metrics is how often do you get people to change the phone. And fashion is really built on how fast you can get people to tell, how fast you can tell people that what you're wearing is out of fashion and wear the next thing. So a lot of promotions that sites are driving is around getting you to change things. And when you are actually incentivizing somebody to change his phone, then all the phones that come back really have value, and the more value you extract out of it, you are able to give better offers next time in terms of the exchange. So therefore, it really is a cost which also is an opportunity to give more value to the consumer. If you consider the return as dead, your offers on Prexo will be lower. If you consider value in what you get back, you can give even more incentives for people to change and therefore increase the business.
That's a great point. So, it's rare, but I have run out of questions, and I also have my eye on the clock. Any quick closing comments from the panel? What is this?
I would just like to add that what you are seeing is an explosion of demand and supply, and the important thing and the interesting thing, and why a lot of the IM and IT guys are joining delivery as well, and companies, new age companies like Flipkart, eCart, is that a lot of innovation has started to happen in this place. I don't know if you heard about pickup centers. So anything that you see where people could be is likely to be, and as you get people to do more of the things themselves, you can incentivize. So for example, in the central business district, we just opened up 20 stores where you can go and pick it up. And if the last mile delivery cost is say 30 rupees, you get an incentive of 30 rupees to go and pick it up. It allows you to go. You could have locker rooms where you could be, messaged a key number, you go in and you just put that key, electronic key number, pick up your package. All the petrol pumps could become pickup centers. For sellers, there could be drop points. If there are no people to come and pick your packet, you could actually fill a truck and then go to a drop-off point, drop off the goods. So a lot of innovation will really happen in the logistics space, which is going to be really exciting. And I believe a lot of assets that are already created, whether it's a hotel, it's a mall, it's a petrol pump, it's a cinema hall, all of it are possible opportunities for innovation. And I'm sure companies like eCart and Flipkart and Delivery and all are really looking to sweat all these assets and really make better service possible for consumers.
I think that just adding to the point, Rishi said that, when we talk about the offline retail already has a very, very strong, distribution network. The question is that, how do you basically leverage that offline distribution channel and just add the last mile part to it to create the that's the most efficient basically, supply chain mechanism that you can create. I think, and there's a lot of innovation which is required, and there's a lot of innovation that happens every day in creating that ecosystem. But what we need to think of is that how can, all the players in the ecosystem actually work together jointly to create this ecosystem. A company on its own will not be able to solve this. One company on its own is never be able to solve this. This is an ecosystem which has to be built by multiple stakeholders and multiple systems which will evolve and have to integrate with each other. So I think that's where the key challenge would lie, is that how do people actually interact and work along with each other, and there is no loss of information in translation.
I think just closing comments from me. I think whenever I discuss in this particular space, you have issues ranging from somebody gave 50 rupees more and now I have nobody to deliver, which is as basic and as rudimentary as it can get, which means you're translating yourself back 50 years, and you're seeing a string of things, right from RFIDs to all sorts of multiple technological developments, which is very much what I would say is the next 50 years. So this is a world where you're actually staying within true India-based extremes, where something as basic and as essential is still being struggled at, but the opportunities in terms of innovation and development seem to be equally strong. So I'll open if there are any questions from the audience for the panel.
What is the compliance factor in COD deliveries? Primarily after the delivery boy picks up the cash and remits it directly into the pool account of either Flipkart or whatever it is there, are there any kind of losses observed?
Yeah, so any system would work with, you know, a certain bit of efficiency and inefficiency built to it.
Right. I'm
there
looking
are,
at what is the percentage?
I offhand I don't know exactly what is the percentage loss in COD this thing, but what happens is that there are protection funds being built where a seller does not lose because of that, and there would be insurances that come into play where that is, but I'm sure you would have that number.
I think the percentage is negligible, you know, and whatever is there, basically it's all insured basically in our network and or in the Flipkart network. Is that so? Both the buyer and the seller interests are protected, and it's not that, you know, we guys are going and hiring anybody and everybody to actually be the delivery boy. So there are people with proper background check, police verification, and training, right? So it's not that easy for them to, you know, just take the money and run away with it, as you know people might think.
So adding on to that question, so that would not be, since it's negligible, would that not be a disincentive for MPOS to be adopted?
No, it's a question of convenience more than and more options for the customers, right? That if you are for buying a 20,000 rupee phone, you may not be carrying 20,000 rupee in cash. You may want to pay it by card, but you will still not pay it by card online because it's a question of prepaid versus postpaid, and not a question of COD versus, you know.
Yeah, in my experience, whenever I have asked any delivery boy or auto, do you have a MPOS machine? They don't have as it. So most of the delivery companies itself, okay, they have not adopted that MPOS as it.
I think it's something to do with the integration and the cost right now. As that comes down, which is coming down, so you know people will start adopting these. That I can tell you that delivery basically is going to start this month to do that as a pilot in 8 cities. So this is something that, you know, right now I think a year ago there was limited sort of visibility in terms of a solution because of the changing RBI regulations also on MPOS, card on delivery, etc. But as that has been, you know, now clarified and the costs are also clear, that is something that will, you know, definitely evolve over a period of time. We'll still have both cash and card, both as an option, which will coexist.
Hi, my name is Rahul Singhal. My question is that last year there were the big announcement that Indian Postal Service is going to be providing services to the e-commerce industry, and there were the mega projects, 3-4 crore projects were signed, and Snapdeal have signed the agreement. So what do you think, how Indian Postal Service is going to work in this ecosystem in the long term, and do you think it's going to be like BSNL, like in telephone, communication industry, like BSNL is working, nobody's want to use it, or they are going to really be competitive with entire logistic industry?
That's a good question.
No, I can speak for my organization. We are not doing anything with Indian Postal Service, or do we ever have plans to do anything with Indian Postal Service?
So a lot of PIN codes in India are accessed through the Indian Postal Services. So till those PIN codes, the distribution has not been built up, delivery capability has not been built up. But then they have a kind of restriction that they could deliver books or smaller packets, and handling of returns is a challenge for Indian Postal Code. So therefore they have the reach, they have that as a strength. If they are able to evolve their ability to handle larger consignments, then I'm sure they would be using it as well. And if they can handle the return logistics. So today in books they give us a lot of reach, but not for other categories. But it's up to them how they use that reach to increase their capacities.
But how the industry is evaluating them? Like I can give you my example. I ordered last year from Flipkart, and the shipment was delivered through Indian Postal Services, and I got it was delivered in Tier 2 city. So I bought something for my father. So postman have called my father and said that come to post office, we cannot deliver it. So we said the order is from Flipkart, and we know the customer service. We don't care whether it's delivered or not. It's a honest perception. But he called again. So my father went post office. He said, sir, we have received the empty packet, and that's why we want you to refuse it. So I'm sure that postmen have taken the stuff out. So, but what is it impacting is the Flipkart image. So, but customer service was good that they have resend it through another courier, and we have received the packet. But means like Indian Postal have the biggest infrastructure. So, is there any possibility that it's like infra belongs to them, but in the front layer belongs to the private organizations? Do you think it's a viable?
Yeah, as I said, it's up to the government how they approach that, right? So if they want to do a partnership with one of the logistics company and really enhance the reach that they have and enhance it with capability, then it's for them. But if they don't do it, then it will be good in terms of reach, but there might be issues like what you said, and there would be some capability issues in terms of the size of package and returns. So it's really.
I think the bigger unlock there is Indian Postal Service.
Yeah.
It's not the demand side. I don't think it is ever going to be, the set of or the ecosystem of people or partners that they can work with. It is going to be their unlock. It is going to be first a mindset unlock of historically the way they've operated and what they would want to operate, in the current day competitive context. And I think, then there is going to be all the other, what I would say, the operating model unlocks, e.g., reverse logistics, etc. So I think, they are the key to their box, and as they evolve, I think, or not evolve, that's how it will play out.
To the people who are running the logistics, since you handle it for a large set of players, so when a seller on a marketplace selling a 1,000 rupee item puts a 50 rupee delivery charge, which is versus not putting it, have you done any analytics on what that does in terms of volume of orders that you're picking from that particular merchant?
I think you might.
I mean, basically,
as
price
I said,
sensitivity to delivery charge. Is there some stuff that you've done on that?
Yeah, so actually it varies by seller, by brand, by category. So there is no one answer, but what happens is that whenever so the whole thing works around PPV, how much product view that a product is getting, and then what kind of conversions you are getting. The conversion drops, everything being equal, if your SLA, if your delivery time goes up by every day, the conversion drops. If your delivery charge comes in, it further drops. So, and if you have no return, it further drops. So therefore, there are various factors which play. Now, for example, if you're buying a branded garment and you're paying a delivery charge, might be less. But if you are buying an unbranded item and there is a delivery charge, you easily switch to a similar item which has no delivery charge, and therefore the drop might be more. So it really depends on category, ASP, branded versus unbranded, but there is definitely a big drop when shipping charge is applied.
Okay, so let me.
As Flipkart, earlier there used to be an open system of you could charge whatever you can in terms of shipping charge. So a lot of people used to put 50 rupees item and 150 rupees delivery charge. But now they cannot charge more than what they are charged. So if the delivery charge is 40 to them, they cannot charge 50 from the consumer. So that's a...
Got it. So if it's an unbranded shirt, 1,000 rupees, versus an unbranded shirt, 950 rupees plus 50 rupees delivery charge, 1,000 rupees and zero delivery charge versus 950 plus 50 delivery charge, what typically flies off better? I mean, one leads to a dissonance at the cart. So any studies that you've done on that?
We have data, but I exactly don't remember. But my guess would be 950 plus 50 would do better, because the choice happens at 950 and 1,000 that doesn't get chosen. It's like you go to the cheapest hotel and then you realize that the other charges are much higher, the taxes are much higher. So, but then it does not build loyalty, because after the transition is done, you realize that that was really a pricing tool. So in short term, some things work, but in long term, people see that it's a complete value
You know, if I may jump in, because for us, we've done various iterations of this, and since we are trying to also build a sort of lifestyle brand, we thought that we'd be, we'll make all the charges clear. So we'll say, okay, it's 150 rupees if you're getting something in a furniture or a home category to avoid whatever, nothing under 1,000 rupees plus 1,000 rupees. We've tried it all, believe me, in the last 2 years. But the one thing that we figured out with all these iterations is that the customer really wants free delivery. It's amazing. I mean, even if it's something for 10,000 rupees, which we've tried it, or it's something for 500 rupees. Seemingly, we've got feedback across the board, and these are slightly, I would say, people, our ASP is higher, people tend to spend a bit more, but free shipping seems to be the...
So the card dropouts...
For us, and especially it's surprising since the customer is spending, the propensity to spend is far more, but somehow they don't want to spend on...
I think we've run out of time. There's a big blinker with like 6 zeros pointing towards us. So many thanks to the panel. I think, I'm sure everybody is leaving this room way more enlightened, and big thanks to the audience for bearing us for the last 1 hour. Thank you.
Thanks you.